Hey, in this video, we're going to talk about crafting the perfect final expense sales script for your internet leads. So specifically, we're going to talk about leads that are generated consumer direct, internet leads, age leads fall in this category as well. And we're going to create a comprehensive guide to how to build that script for your final expense sales. Hi, I'm Bill Rice. I'm doing this on behalf of Age Lead Store, and let's jump right into this crafting of the script. And so I'm a big proponent of writing scripts. Even if you're an experienced final expense insurance sales agent, it is so important to craft a script and to practice the script. You'll hear me talk over and over again. I want you to take that in the context of learning a script like an actor would, to be able to make it your own and to be super practiced, concise. That's really the big one, right? If by practicing this, by writing it down, we'll keep that pitch concise and easy to understand for the client that you're addressing. When you don't create a script, there's so much in your head, you know so much about your product and so much about final expense, there's a tendency for you to just constantly ramble over it. So we want to create a nice, tight sales script. And this is how you kind of do this. So the first part is really kind of breaking down and understanding what the different components of the script should be. The two most specific, if you're going to do nothing else, definitely write out and script the opening and the closing, because these are two moments in time where you have a limited amount of time to actually create a positive effect with that part of the script, right? Opening, you only got like 5 seconds, right, to get their attention. And this is true both in, say, cold calling or more when we're talking about scripts, we're probably actually talking about text messages or voicemails because that's more likely to be what occurs, or even emails. But again, you only have a matter of seconds to get their attention, to gain their interest, and to gain their trust, right? So that definitely has to be really tight. And that lends itself to being well scripted and, sharpening that pencil and going over and over again and practicing it, writing it, rewriting it, those sorts of things. And then the second part is the closing, right? So those are two key elements, because the closing, at that point, they've probably been engaged with you for a while, and they're either going to get tired of the conversation or get frustrated with the conversation. So getting to that close and making that tight. The other thing is just to create clarity, right? When you get down to that closing portion, it's important for them to be clear as to what's going to happen next, right? The things that need to happen for them to ultimately get their policy in place, right? So those are definitely important to kind of be the scripted pieces. The other components in there in your script that I always like to highlight is I like to create a section and just sort of a laundry list of benefits that are, again, pre-scripted. So as I talk to the customer, this is also what creates a sort of a natural flow to the script. As I'm talking to the client or the prospect, I'm getting a sense of their personal situation, their needs, what's important to them. Is the beneficiary, which often is the case, is that really kind of the thought in the back of their mind? Hey, I have a particular person in mind that I don't want to burden, or I want to leave a bit of a legacy for. So that often is a key one. But there may be some other things. Maybe just recently they were left with a burden, right? The family member passed away, and the family kind of had to cobble together the funds that they have in order to give a nice final burial ceremony and cover those expenses. And maybe that created a burden or some anxiety on them that made them think about their own situation. So there's a lot of different reasons and motivations why people might inquire about final expenses. And so having kind of a nice, succinct laundry list of benefits as to why this fits allows you to kind of pick those off and put them specifically into their need or their specific whatever their specific motivation is to be inquiring about it. Allows you to just quickly pick up those benefits, talk about them, and really sort of satisfy all of those needs and concerns that they have. The other thing that's kind of a similar feature of that is, of course, objections, right? Writing down a bunch of objections. You probably got a half dozen in your mind right now. As soon as I say objections, you're like, oh yeah, these are the ones that I always hear. Again, crafting a good, solid response and then practicing them so they're natural. So as soon as that objection comes up, you just immediately react to it in just a friendly conversational way. It doesn't feel like you're kind of doing sales jujitsu and pivoting on them and all that kind of stuff. If you haven't practiced the script or you're not prepared for the objection, oftentimes it comes off in one of two ways. One, you either kind of fumble around through it, you don't have the perfect words, and then you get off the sales call and you're like, oh, if I had just said, right? Or the other situation is maybe you do have it, maybe you have it in the script, but you haven't really practiced it. So it almost feels like you're manipulating them instead of just incorporating that objection in kind of just a nice, natural way. So make sure that you have those objections. You have it in your sales script so you can refer to them, but make sure that you're practicing them over and over again. The other component of the sales script is a list of sort of mechanisms or concepts that will create urgency, right? So pre-thinking, what are the things that make it important for a client to close today or to make this decision sooner than later? And you can have these, in essence, are kind of like little trial closes sometimes. That's another kind of section you can build out if you want to, is like these little micro closes, these little trial closes along the way, because it's important as you're kind of going through the presentation that you're moving through and testing that you're on the right track and that you're moving towards a closing. And so that's what trial closes are for. But the other way that you can do this is just having a nice laundry list of things that create urgencies or reasons that they should make the decision now and not later. Again, thinking through those, crafting them out, practicing them, make them super natural so it doesn't feel like you're pushing them. You're just reminding them that, hey, this is really important to do now and not later. We have all kind of the typical urgencies within any type of insurance. Hey, you never know when unexpected event's going to happen. It's going to be cheaper now than later if you wait. So there's all kinds of different things that you can create, sort of pre-crafted urgency statements that allow you to sort of pick those up as you're going through it. And then, again, having that script available to you so you can just sort of reference it. You don't have to read it word for word. Super important. And then, so those are kind of the components. Those are the pieces, the building blocks that I want to build into that script. And we'll probably have some other videos where I'll actually give you specific examples of those so you can use them like building blocks when you're writing out your script. But a lot of these things you already know. So those are kind of the sections. So if I'm writing out a document to build that script, those are the sections that I'm going to do. The other thing that I'm keeping in mind too, as we kind of build this script, is sort of the 5 essential components of a good script, right? You want to make sure that the script ultimately is going to build and establish rapport, right? So you want to practice it in such a way that it comes off in a friendly, conversational, natural way. And so sometimes it's good for you to have some icebreakers in there too, to help you just sort of instigate or trigger some points of rapport, or remind you. Like I'm really bad at this. I have a tendency to just want to get down to business. So I have to remind myself when I get on a sales call or a presentation to start with a little rapport building and to start with some of those more sort of friendly, offhanded, adjacent sort of questions and conversations. Hey, what do you do? If there's a particular sports team that you think they're interested in, or just get them talking about themselves is really the best way to build rapport, right? And people love to talk about what they do, their community, their family, and then passions, hobbies, and those sorts of things, sports teams. So those are great ways to build rapport. So you want to make sure you got rapport building inside your script. You want to make sure that you clearly have points in your script where you're pulling out needs, right? You want to identify those needs. You want to identify those pain points, the anxiety, insurance in particular. Usually they're wrestling with something that's keeping them up at night, right? Something that's keeping them anxious, right? Particularly in final expense or life insurance, obviously protecting and securing their loved ones, right? So that can be a big one. Like I said, highlighting, so the third one, highlighting benefits. There should be a whole section on just benefits so that you don't have to kind of think about them. You have them right there. You can rattle them off. If they have questions, you're like, why should I do this? It gives you a nice quick laundry list so you can, again, keep everything tight and concise. Then your objection session. So number 4, addressing objections. Make sure that you have a whole bunch of objections sort of crafted out there, thought about, and good tight responses to those so that you can stay on track. So whenever we're doing sales, we're trying to kind of go down this straight line. Sometimes this gets us in trouble because we think we go from opening to close. It doesn't really work like that, right? It goes from opening to kind of we wander off here. What objection crafting these objections and responses help you do is when you get a little objection that takes you over here, it allows you to give a response that brings you back into that straight line, right? So you're going to kind of do this weaving path, but by having this crafted, you're going to kind of know what that straight line is and know where you kind of need to bring them back to. And so that's what those objections are going to help you do. And then, of course, closing the deal. That's highlighting a bunch of different sort of trial closes or examples of ways to create urgency so you can kind of move that presentation along towards a final commitment and close. So I hope that's helped you to start to think about how you're going to craft your script. Encourage you to sit it down, write it, practice it, sit in front of a camera, record yourself, just like I'm doing here. Kind of work through that script. Act like you're talking to the camera, and then take a look at that. It'll be hard to do because you get uncomfortable. You kind of watch yourself on video, but it'll probably be one of the best things that you can do. So encourage you to write and practice those scripts, and that will make all of those presentations, all of those calls and sales conversations so much smoother, and you will get so many more closes out of them. So encourage you to do the work. Also encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get all of our training videos, and look forward to seeing you on the next video.